Hey y'all, Max here again. This video we're going to touch on some questions you want to ask before you buy your first home. The first thing you want to ask yourself is, how long will you live in the area? Realtor fees and real estate commissions are up to 6% when you sell a property. So the rule of thumb here is to not buy a property and sell it within a very short amount of time, because that 6% on real estate fees really does add up. The first ratio they're going to look at, the mortgage lenders that is the front end ratio. That includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Most lenders will only let you borrow or your payments be up to 28% of your gross income. That's a good rule of thumb, not more than 30. Some lenders, depending upon who you go with, will stretch that all the way to 40% because they want to sell you the mortgage, obviously. But a good rule of thumb is not to let that front end ratio be more than 30% for a variety of reasons. Stretching yourself too thin is obviously the most difficult thing when you buy a house. Being able to make the mortgage is really, really important. So if you're not able to make that mortgage, that is a bad thing, obviously. The second ratio lenders look at is the back end ratio, or the debt to income ratio. Most lenders want to see that at 36% or lower. So that means if you make $50,000 yearly, your monthly debt obligations would be no more than $1,500. And the lower the better is that, so pay off credit card debt, pay off all those monthly obligations will begin to show that you are a little more responsible and show that lenders that you have a lower debt to income, able to absorb more of that mortgage. One of the biggest differences between being a tenant and being a homeowner is that when things break, you have to fix them yourself. There's no more calling your property management company, calling the maintenance guy at the apartment complex to come fix your leaky faucet, or to come replace the dishwasher that's faulty. That's up to you now. So that's the biggest thing you have to ask yourself. Are you prepared to be able mentally be able to deal with that kind of thing? And secondly, financially able to deal with that. Most recommendations are 10% of the home's value will be used towards yearly expenses, whether that be replacing a leaky faucet, whether that be buying new appliances. So if you have a $200,000 house, you can expect to spend $2,000 yearly on those home incidental things. In my first year of homeownership, I had quite a few things happen. I'll tell you the two most staggering ones. So the first one was the water line that is hooked up to my fridge goes underground under the house and into my fridge up through the flooring. Long story short, I woke up one morning preparing myself to go to work, and I come to the kitchen, and I come to a kitchen that is about half an inch deep of water. A month later, well, I dealt with that obviously, I had to clean that up, figure out that. The next month, I open up my cabinets under my sink and see all these little pellets that I come to realize were rat feces. So within 30 days, I had my whole entire kitchen flooded, and I also had rats inhabit my place. Now, those are just two of many things that can happen with homeownership, and I hope you're prepared for something like that. A lot of those home repair and home incidentals are based upon age of the property. So figure out what's the average age of the neighborhood or city you want to live in. That's a big deal. My house was built in 1959, so things are old. Things weren't up to the code if you had to build a new home today. So there are lots of different things, whether that be the pipes, whether that be just how the whole entire house was constructed for the wood. There's different things throughout, 50s, 60s, 70s that were not, always looked at so prudently. Now they are. So older the house, the more you have to absorb for repairs and such. Now, if you were at a newer house, maybe that 10% of yearly incidentals, maybe it's only going to be 5%. But as the house ages, obviously things come up. I think a 10% of the value of the home is going to be a good thing no matter how old the house is. But just know that the older the home, historically, obviously, is going to have more of a cost throughout the course of the year for repair and maintenance. How much money do you have saved up is the biggest question you're going to ask yourself. Lenders want 20% to avoid private mortgage insurance. I'd recommend to get as close as you can. I know 20% sometimes is not feasible, but you're going to avoid a large cost of that private mortgage insurance. 20% is also a good rule of thumb because it really shows you that over the course of time you've been responsible with saving and really putting aside money and not doing those kind of things. But before you can even begin to think about saving for a down payment for a house, I'd recommend forecasting and preparing for a year financially, and that also includes having 6 months worth of living expenses saved up. That's the biggest first and foremost, because if you were to buy a home and you have no money in savings, what happens if you were to lose your job the month after you buy your house? Now, hits really strongly home to me because when I first bought my house, 4 or 5 months later is when I lost my job, and I was not very prepared for that. So I want to encourage, plan the whole year financially first, have 6 months of living expenses saved up before that down payment even starts becoming a thought in your mind. What do you guys think? Are these good questions? What more should you ask before you buy the house? You first-time homeowners, what funny stories or not so funny and unfortunate stories did you go through your first couple years of home buying, home ownership? What happened? Did you have rats? Did you have raccoons? Did you have other things? I had all sorts of other things, but I only have a short video to explain what happened. What other questions should we ask? Does this make sense? Is 36% a good debt to income ratio? What do you guys want to have when you first buy your first home? Comment, subscribe, like, start a discussion, all sorts of good stuff right here, whatever it is. Hop on it and talk to you guys soon. See you guys.